Yeah, I'm here trying to make another live stream. And I was here yesterday and I left off talking about Tanya Tucker and Glenn Campbell. I'm going to continue on with the Glenn Campbell mode. And as everyone knows in the vinyl community, Glenn was a member of the Wrecking Crew. For those that don't know, the Wrecking Crew was a studio musicians group out of the Studio Musicians Union. So any elite group that needed a member to sit in on their band if someone was sick, they would call the Wrecking Crew at the union and say, "We need a replacement for such and such for today." And someone from the Wrecking Crew would go out and fill in for that day. So what that means is that basically anyone who that was in the Wrecking Crew played with everybody in Hollywood, basically. So I don't want to get into the politics of this, that, and the other thing. All I can say is that Glenn Campbell was a member of the Wrecking Crew, and he did play with the Beach Boys. Glenn Campbell played with the Beach Boys. So now you need to pay real close attention right now to me because we're going to go from the Beach Boys right to Spawn Ranch. And that's where Charlie Manson gets involved. I won't talk about a record that Charlie wrote called Cease to Exist, and the Beach Boys turned it into a song called Never Learn Not to Love. Okay. I'm not going to talk about that record other than Nic Schreck said he saw a copy of it with Charlie's name on it for the writing of the song. Okay, here I have a 45 I'm going to show of the Beach Boys, and here's the cover. You can see that Dennis Wilson is the only one who doesn't have a shirt on. Why is that? They're all wearing like blue shirts, but Dennis has his shirt unbuttoned so you can see the hairs on his chest and his bling. So why is that? Why? Because he was the only surfer in the band. He was the only one who actually took a surfboard and got in the friggin' water with a surfboard. The rest of them were like fake surfers, kind of like fake cowboys. But anyway, I'm not going to get into all the politics of that, but I'm going to show a book now. Here's a book. It's called The Manson File. It's by Nic Schreck. You can see how thick it is. It's the revised version. It's the most in-depth book ever written about Charlie Manson. I have so many connections to Charlie Manson in this book right here. I've only read about half of it, and I am astounded that I have this many connections to Charlie Manson. And I'm astounded to who was in his band. He had a band named the Milky Way. I'm astounded to who was in his band, who stole his music, who he interviewed with, who's lying about meeting him. I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? They made a documentary about this at the ranch, and, they lied about the whole documentary. They cut it in half, split it in half, made it half militant and half family, and half of it was staged. It was like from what I heard, it was a training film for the government to learn how to do a raid on a ranch. But I'm not here to even talk about any of that. All I can tell you is that I was put on Spawn Ranch against my will. I'm not even going to go into that. I'm just going to talk about who Steve met on the ranch when he was put there against his will. Okay, I met Charlie. I met Susan Atkins. I met Patricia Krenwinkel. I met Leslie Van Houten. And I met Linda Kasabian. Okay? Met all the three of the women. Not going to say what happened. I was going to leave. I was going to stay. Linda was a federal agent, allegedly. But it's not allegedly. She was. Okay? So Linda Kasabian got me off the ranch. She said, "Let's go now, Steve." She showed me her badge. "Let's go now." I ran. We came down off the back road of the ranch. If you look at the ranch, there's like a back road and a front area where all the stores are. I never saw the front area where the stores are. I came down the back road where there were some horse stables and a little friggin' room where the girls were, and a little fan overhead. Kind of looks like the fan that Michael Channels has when he talks about Spawn Ranch. So anyway, Linda Kasabian took me off the ranch. She said, "You got to run and dodge and dive and roll up to the hill," which we did because people were shooting bullets at me left and right. Bullets were spinning around my head. Okay? You think I'm lying, give me a lie detector test. Do whatever you want to do. I'm not lying. Okay? Went up to the top of the hill. They jumped in a friggin' truck. Then they took me down Ventura Boulevard and dumped me off there. And I had to go into a store for a while, and I came back out, and there was the same friggin' truck. They picked Steve up again. They said, "Get in the back." They took me to Linda Kasabian's apartment in North Hollywood. They dumped me off at Linda Kasabian's apartment overnight. I had to stay in her apartment overnight. In the apartment were like 3 or 4 children. There was Bruner, Michael Bruner was there. Tanya was there. A couple other kids were there. This was Linda Kasabian's child. She told me she was having an affair with Tex Watson, and she said, "Didn't you remember meeting him a couple weeks ago, Steve?" Well, at that time, no, I didn't remember meeting him at that time. And then she said, "You know what, Steve? And I hear you're not supposed to swear on YouTube because if you swear more than once in the first 10 minutes, then you get a notice or something. So I'm going to swear right now, but that's hopefully the only time I'm going to swear. I'll just say the F word." Linda said to me, "You know what, Steve? You don't want to effing mess with the French freedom fighters up in the hills because they're in it for life. They've been in it from childhood." Guess who she was talking about, folks? Roman Polanski, Furtowski, and who else is French? I don't know. They say, now they're saying that Bruce Lee left his glasses at the crime scene. He taught Jay Sebring how to protect himself. And now I'm hearing that Quincy Jones was supposed to be there that night. So you see, you put all these puzzles together. It's like, you want to talk about my Chinese diaspora that's related to Connie Chung? No, we're not going to go there. That's probably why Bruce Lee was involved in this whole mess and me to begin with. He got signed a deal, and I wonder what happened to him. What, they unalived him, didn't they? And his son? I don't want to talk about it. I'm just going to continue on with what happened to me. I was in Linda's house. I looked at the mail because I didn't know where I was. They had mail in the house. I looked at the mail. It said Kasabian on it. All the children had little X's on their foreheads. They said, "Won't you stay with us and take care of us?" And I'm holding them overnight. And finally, the morning shows up, and Linda comes in and opens the door up and lets me in. And she kisses me, and, she's hugging me, and we're, whatever. Then we go out to the truck. And I didn't find out till years later whose this truck was. This is a friend of mine's truck. And I didn't find out till 40 years later whose truck it was. Okay, so I'm in the back of the truck. Guess who's in the back of the truck with me? Bobby Beausoleil and Shorty Shea. You know how I remember? Because those two names rhyme. I'm Bobby Beausoleil. I'm Shorty Shea. Hey, those names rhyme. Now I'm a poet. Now I know it. Steve, you better jump and get out of the van. Well, that was later on. But they took off. Linda Kasabian was sitting shotgun. TJ the Terrible was driving. Okay, I've known TJ since I was a little kid. I'm not going to go into it. Okay, they drove up to Laurel Canyon. They drove to Topanga Canyon, at the top of Topanga Canyon, where they went in there to get some cigarettes for TJ because he was a smoker. So that's when Bobby and Shorty told me to hop. I was going to hop anyway. I wasn't going to hang. So I hopped and ran down the canyon and lied down there in the canyon dirt. And TJ came down there with a gun and put it to the back of my head. Said, "Get back in the car, Steve. We're taking you to a home for runaway children." I said, "Kill me right now, TJ. I ain't going with you." He couldn't pull the gun, couldn't pull the trigger and finish the job. Why not? Why couldn't he unalive Steve? Because he knew me as a child. That's why. Just like me knowing Michael Bruner as a child, him sitting on my knee in his diapers and I'm popping him up and down. Now I'm finding all the truth about this case. I don't even want to go into it. It's so upsetting to me. I can name who's in Charlie's band. You know, if you watched any of my videos a few days ago, I went to court and talked about people that don't exist, that are part of my family now, FOLGER. Are they involved with the French freedom fighters? I have no idea. Okay? All I know is that maybe you should just stop now, Steve. Who was in Charlie's band, Steve? That might save that for the next episode of the Milky Way. Who was in the Milky Way? A guy named Terrence Knight, Terry Knight. And I'm sure you've all heard of him. In some circles, he was the Six Beatles, but we don't want to get anybody upset. So, one of these days I'm going to talk about how I was playing Maharishi Yoga's sister's sitar, and I'll maybe present another album. And I can talk about how I was in the Spiral Staircase, and I met Charlie at the Corral Club. I was supposed to be in his band, and the Hells Angels showed up at the Corral Club. So that wasn't going to work out too well because we were hanging with the Satan slaves, man. We weren't into the angels, dude. Okay? So, I met Bobby at my Chung diaspora's family's house. And then I met a couple of the other girls to finish this story up. My father used to work at Universal Studios. He's a very famous casting director there. They're telling me like, "Oh, Steve, you might have some siblings that you don't know about from maybe your dad, because everybody wanted to be with your dad so they could be a movie star." So one day I got a gig at Universal on my own that nobody in my family helped me get other than a friend of mine. His name was Bill Darnell. I didn't know at the time he was a federal agent. So we go up because Bill's a professional guitar player. He knows I mess around with guitar because I interviewed with Frank Zappa and I was playing sitar as a child. So they take me up to Universal, and who's there? A group called Medicine Ball, a guy named Dewey Weber. Yeah, you've all heard of Dewey Weber out of Buffalo Springfield. He was there that day trying to do the stand-up Mick Jagger thing, and they had someone else playing drums. But the problem was that this was the day after Jimi Hendrix was murdered, allegedly. I'm not going to go into that. But two of the girls from the ranch were there because they wanted to know from me, do you think Hendrix was murdered, Steve? Because we know you met him. I'm not going to go into how I met Hendrix or what he said. That's another story. But the two girls that were asking me these questions were Capistrano, Catherine Myers, otherwise known as Catherine Gillis, Cappy. She's got more names than otherwise known as. She's a professional virtuoso ventriloquist. She could play Bach on her violin. So don't think people in Charlie's band weren't talented. He was a friggin' Beach Boy, people. The other girl there was Brenda McCann. She played a little fiddle. And when they decided that Dewey Weber decided he wanted to make a song about the death of Hendrix, my friend Bill Darnell looked at Dewey and he said, you think I'm going to make money off the death of Hendrix? You're dreaming, pal. I'm out of here. The girls were begging Bill, no, please don't leave. Please don't leave. I guess maybe they were going to be on the album. It was called Medicine Ball. Okay. My dad was asking me, how the hell did you get on the back lot of Universal without me knowing about it? That's another story I'm not going to talk about. All I know is Brenda McCann Bruce Davis turned himself in because he was in love with Brenda McCann. And so all she did was testify against him. You know, these women, if these men helped any of these women at all the women testified against them. Okay? Some of them were controlled and manipulated because only one person had a gun that I knew of. I met 3 of these women. I took knives away from all of them in 5 seconds. It's not like they were professional killers, okay? Charlie could have slit my throat. He didn't. Why not? Because he wanted me to be in his band. We were going to have 3 wives. Kind of like, is that Mormonism? You know, why was there according to Nic Schreck, the Church of Scientology put a direct number on the Davis family, on Bruce Davis and Charlie and 2 of the girls. They won't even say who the girls are. Do you know when the Scientology church puts a direct number against your family? Do you know what that means? That's worse than having fucking a tattoo on your arm with numbers on it. Okay? Because these people will come after you and your family members for 1 billion years. So, you know, we're talking about Scientology now. L. Ron Hubbard. You know, Lisa Marie Presley, Priscilla Presley. From what I understand, because I've been studying a lot of this, Scientology is nothing more than an offshoot of the Church of Satan. Okay? I think there's more Satanists in Scientology than Anton LaVey's church. Because I'm not going to go into that either, because what he did to Susan Atkins. I met Susan Atkins in the flesh on the ranch. Everyone else met her in prison. If I had known what had happened now compared to 40 years ago, I would have been writing Susan Atkins every day and been her best pen pal and visiting her every day instead of saving whoever I saved or didn't save. Okay? So next time we're going to be talking about Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and I will present an album that has his music on it, and I will talk about how I played his sister's sitar when I was 14 years old until my fingers bled. Okay? Have a nice day, VC and crime community. Like and share, because I'm being shadow banned here.